Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to October Nights. I think before we start tonight, I should address the weird hiatus that happened here. So originally, there was supposed to be a video every single night in October. I went for broke this year in October, and I really, for whatever reason, thought I could accomplish it and not take a huge hit to my sleep or mental health or have to sacrifice anything else. I don't know how I thought that was possible, but I did, and very quickly it became obvious that that was not going to be the case. I had to kind of slow down early on when I got called into work one night, really backtracked a bunch of videos that were already in progress of being made, and since it put everything behind, it took a while to catch up, only then to have 2 whole videos get corrupted, which meant that they were the next things to go out, so I was ready for them to be released, only to have both of them corrupt, and I had to effectively start completely over. The only thing I had was the audio recording from both of those recording sessions, so I had to rewrite the script from scratch, and this happened about a week apart, so I had to completely redo this multiple times. And so when I thought I would have time to shoot a video, I was actually having to take that time to reshoot in segments the videos that I'd lost, and that really put me far behind. And then obviously work compounded, and I just never got around to finishing this series, and I really want to do that. I want to finish this year, and so for the next 2 weeks in November, I'm going to try and finish it, and then we'll start Movie Club Season 2, which I'm really proud of. But yeah, obviously I learned from this year that mental health wise and just workload wise, I can't pull off doing a video every night in October and keep a full workload and try and stage a play. That's kind of why I pulled back. I needed to take a break. I needed to not do a video every night because I knew I couldn't put my heart and soul into it, and that meant falling really far behind. That being said, I actually did watch a horror movie every single night in October. I just didn't make a video on it. So that's 2 years in a row where I've been able to pull that off. I don't know how that happened. Effectively, I would just when I had a lunch break, I just watched most of a movie. And then later on in the day, when I had a couple minutes in between classes or things like that, I would catch the rest of it. I think I actually probably got closer to 40-ish. I'm not entirely certain what number it ended up at. I saw movies that I wasn't expecting to. I completely changed the schedule multiple times to accommodate talking about newer films. And you'll hear about those very, very soon, because I'm going to try and get at least 2-3 episodes out a day, because these are easy to shoot and edit, and editing is actually where I, make my bread and butter. But yeah, that's kind of a long and short explanation of why this series fell off. I've learned my lesson. Next year, we're probably going to move to like a 2 video a week, so one on Monday, one on Friday, kind of bookend your week of horror, tell you what I've watched, and then do a longer form video on Friday, which is kind of the movie club format anyway. So with all that being said, let's actually talk about the movie that I came here to talk about, which is Tommy Lee Wallace's, I guess technically it's a miniseries or a limited series, whatever you want to call it, his adaptation of Stephen King's It from 1990. There really is a lot to love about this movie. I am a big fan of Wallace from his work with John Carpenter. I adore his film Halloween 3. I think it has its issues, but I do really love it. And I think it gets unfairly maligned because it's the one Halloween movie without Michael Myers. And it's funny that one is the most maligned because 5 and 6 are prime targets for terrible, terrible writing and acting. Not to even mention Halloween Resurrection. So realistically, Halloween 3 shouldn't even remotely be in your top 10 list of worst Halloween movies. It's not even close. So yeah, I love Wallace and his work with John Carpenter, but this is, I feel like, much more his project, and you can see his fingerprints all over it, and you can tell that he really was passionate about making this limited series adaptation of it. And you can see that Lawrence D. Cohen, who co-wrote the teleplay for this, clearly loved the original material, and you can see that oozing through every frame, and the way that they pretty much replicate the book in terms of its structure, but also try and replicate the major character and emotional beats. And while the cinematic adaptations from director Andy Muschietti from the 2010s are, I would argue, much better in terms of quality and scares, what this film does is, I think, capture the beauty of the structure of the original book extremely well and nails the emotional core of that original text. And in some ways is a truer adaptation of the original book. Sure, it's got its warts, it's got its flaws. It is a TV-14 rated television program, so obviously Pennywise doesn't get to do all the horrific things that he does in the book or in the 2 subsequent films that came out much later in the 2010s. It just can't replicate some of the stuff in the book. But what this adaptation does really well is create this really moody and atmospheric space. And frankly, Tim Curry is an amazing Pennywise. I could sit here and compare and contrast what the two do really well together, but that would be a waste of time because I've already done that with my good friend and collaborator and movie club co-creator Gavin Slay. So here's a little bit of that.
The miniseries was... I liked it for other reasons than I liked the other one. I felt like it was a little more cohesive starting with... Because from the beginning, obviously, the miniseries is the child timelines told in flashbacks. So that kind of when they cross over to the adult timeline, still have a few flashbacks, it feels like, oh, we're just filling in a little bit more, as opposed to chapter 2 kind of just feeling like it's half child anyway. Half child timeline, so it feels a little bit less, I don't know, or like them basically inventing new stuff in like the clubhouse and stuff, where it's like, okay.
Yeah, I would say that overall, I'd like the actors in the 2 films better, but I do think the miniseries, for all its flaws and its inabilities to go as hard as I think it needs to for this kind of adaptation of Stephen King's magnum opus, nails the emotional core of that book.
Yeah.
And I think that final, obviously the wrap up where they start to forget is fantastic. And the final bike ride is literally the end of the book, besides Bill like waking up and he's like literally writing about losing his memories. And it's my favorite passage in a book ever, and it doesn't have any spoilers, so I'll just pull it off my shelf and read it to you. He awakens from this dream, unable to remember exactly what it was, or much at all beyond the simple fact that he has dreamed about being a child again. He touches his wife's smooth back as she sleeps her warm sleep and dreams her own dreams. He thinks that it is good to be a child, but it is also good to be grown up, and able to consider the mystery of childhood, its beliefs and desires. I will write about all of this one day, he thinks, and knows it's just a dawn thought, an after-dreaming thought. But it's nice to think so for a while in the morning's clean silence, to think that childhood has its own sweet secrets and confirms mortality, and that mortality defines all courage and love. To think that what is looked forward must also look back, and that each life makes its own imitation of immortality, a wheel. Or so Bill Denbrough sometimes thinks on those early mornings after dreaming, when he almost remembers his childhood and the friends with whom he shared it.
There was definitely a lot that I liked about the miniseries.
Yeah.
I know that when I've watched so far of the Dead Meat reviews and stuff of the miniseries, it seems like James didn't like the scenes where the adults are just hanging out.
Yeah.
And joking back, I really actually liked those.
Yeah.
I could really feel the chemistry between the actors. I was like,
they're so good.
These guys are friends. They're just friends.
Yeah.
And there was some of that, obviously, in the movies, but I could have used it even a little bit more, I think.
Yes.
I think that gets to the emotional core of it, like these people rediscovering themselves and their friendship.
Yeah, and I think that's what the miniseries nails that is not quite as nailed in it Chapter 2 because of its format.
The
cast in it Chapter 2 is amazing. Like, pitch perfect casting. Bill Hader gets to have one of the best arcs I've ever seen. And something that's only, I would argue, hinted at in the book. The more, because when I was reading it, even before seeing it, Chapter 2, there's, I would argue homoerotic subtext within that character. And then they make that text in the film adaptation. Yeah, and even in the miniseries, they kind of hint at that. I'm not sure if that was intentional or what, but it definitely feels, everyone's picking up on the same vibe in that text. And when you listen to Tommy Lee Wallace, who we watched, one of his movies tonight, talk about making it the miniseries, he often he uses the quote, we had champagne ideas and a beer budget. And you can tell, there are really cool camera moves throughout, and the way that they sometimes do the match cuts, which they do in it Chapter 2, and I think that's totally quoting from the miniseries. I really liked seeing the miniseries after the other two, because I was able to appreciate what it nailed back in 1990 and the things that I think the newer films tackled much better. But to appreciate them as two wholly separate things. And
they really are like playing two different versions of Pennywise. Like, Tim Curry's great is just like this maniacal clown.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Skarsgård, this is Bill.
Yep, you got it.
It's like kind of almost plays like something more alien or more unhuman.
Which
like,
is,
I think Pennywise doesn't feel human. It feels like there's something darker and different and wholly alien about his performance, which is great.
Which is, accurate to the text.
Right. But I mean, both are scary and
different. Oh, yeah.
We're great.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to see how they both work. There was one thing about the miniseries that I thought was good in both, like, in different ways. The fortune cookie scene.
Yes.
Like, really good in the miniseries. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, the newer movie has better effects and can spice it up with some more computer stuff, but I thought it was effective in the series as well. And like, having seen the movie, I still was like, oh yeah, this is effectively creepy.
Yeah. I do think that is the difference between the movie and the miniseries, is that the movie has much more like scary moments, whereas it's just kind of an uneasy and eerie feeling that you get with the miniseries, which is fine because that's, all you're going to be able to do on a network. I was surprised to hear the N-word in a 1990s television production.
That's true.
I was like, oh, okay.
It did drop the F-bomb and I got that, but I was not, didn't fully connect that, that was on television.
Yeah, a 1990s...
That's not an R-rated movie.
TV 14 television broadcast.
90s, man.
I did read that apparently the actor that plays Henry Bowers and had to say that line, like, in between takes would always apologize just because he felt so bad that he had to say it. I mean, the other awful thing about reading into that movie, because I'm still working on the episode for October Nights, because, I'm about to have to binge through making all those episodes, is finding out how many of those actors are gone. I mean, the kid who played Henry Bowers, the kid Henry Bowers, killed himself in the early 2000s. John Ritter passed away from like a heart attack, who played adult Ben Hanscom. Yeah, a lot of those people are gone now, which is sad. But
I think adult Bill in the miniseries, like the first thing I saw when I saw him was like, oh, he looks like Tommy Jarvis from Part 5.
Yeah. I also do love the fact that, like...
and I had to go look it up.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, like, once he actually started acting and talking, it was like, oh, no, these are different actors. But
yeah,
that first glimpse is, like, the same kind of aesthetic.
Yeah. Yeah, this would be too late for that actor, because that actor did Part 5 and then went into ministry after that.
Yeah, I remember that. So, but it fooled me for a second.
Just a second. It is funny to me that neither adaptation of it has like actually accurately depicted Bill visually, because Bill is described as like a balding man.
Oh.
And obviously miniseries Bill is the opposite of that. Maybe has too much hair. James McAvoy is a bit closer, but not balding either.
James McAvoy is.
That's the thing in like it Chapter 2. All the adult actors are hot. All of them.
This is true.
I mean, the guy who plays
Mike Ritchie.
Yeah, Mike is literally the model for so the guy who like comes in on the horse. That's him.
God, you're blowing my mind.
I'm surprised you didn't know that, because that was like the first thing I knew when I was going to see the movie. And then when I saw it, I was like, it's another one of those
commercials since Kent is, but I don't see a lot of commercials.
Yeah, I still get.
For some reason, I don't get Old Spice.
I do get Old Spice on YouTube on occasion, but yeah, that's.
Well, I'm familiar with the specific commercials you were talking about when you said it clicked, but I didn't immediately go, oh yeah, that's him. There are a lot of the acting and the character choices that they made in the miniseries.
Yeah, especially the kids are good for the 90s. I'll say that.
Yeah.
So, some of them are more solid than others, but
like watching the first It movie kind of spoils it almost. Yeah. Like if I had seen the miniseries, I might have just been like, okay, yeah, they're good. But having seen the outstanding It movie, it did kind of, I think, spoil the acting of it a little bit. Not enough for me to like, I hate this. It was just more like, oh, I see what they're going for. They don't quite hit the mark, but it's
Right.
effective enough.
Yeah, but the adult actors for the miniseries are across the board great. Yeah, I think it's a good movie.
There are a couple painfully obvious ad breaks.
Yes, product of its time.
Yeah. Overall, really good story. I do want to read the book at some point, and I need to go do that.
You should. It's very good.
Overall, what I think this film adaptation lacks in terms of scares and genuine terror, it makes up with a fantastic adult cast and just a well-rounded story that clearly is adapting the original book the best it can for television. And it does have its moments of terror, but I think it nails what it has to, which is this beautiful core friendship. You truly buy into the fact that these adult actors are friends, and you don't even think of them as actors. You think of them as their characters. You think of them as Ben, as Mike, as Eddie. It makes so much sense. This is the Losers Club, or the Lucky Seven as they're referred to in this television adaptation. I found myself while I was watching, because I did sit down and watch it all in one fell swoop, that it has a really cool momentum. Of course, there's a little bit of a pacing issue. It's 3 hours and 7 minutes, but it does really work. And there's a lot of moments where you can tell that they had genuinely great ideas, and if they had been given more of a budget and given more of a chance to adapt it without the restraints of television, I think this could have been amazing. Obviously, it's very 90s, but I think that's not to its detriment. There is this genuine charm. Tommy Lee Wallace's version of Stephen King's It is a great little middle ground, a great little interlude that I think captures what horror can do so well, which is tell very, very human stories, even if they're a little bit fantastical. And while a lot of people will, I think, make fun of Stephen King and his endings, I think, personally, I love the ending to It. I think the book nails it, and while it is tragic and bittersweet, it's such a poetic way to think about childhood and growing into adulthood and having to leave behind a bit of childhood. It's haunting, but in the best way. You're reminded of these ghosts your names, you can't place the names, but you remember them. And when you feel their presence, while you may not be able to put to words what that is, you remember the good times. And those are the best kinds of ghosts. And I think that's what Tommy Lee Wallace captured in his adaptation of Stephen King's It here. And it's why I think it's a great little miniseries, and it's something that you should definitely check out if you're a fan of Stephen King, and even more so if you're a fan of that particular book. But also, I think it's just a fun little horror adventure. So yeah, it's a beautiful movie about friendship. I think Stephen King's most poetic ending in all of his books, and it's something that I genuinely love, and I'm glad that I cut out a little bit of time this horror holiday season to finally check it out, because I loved Annie Muschietti's filmic adaptations, but I had yet to check this out, and I'm glad that I did. And I hope you do too. As of right now, I believe it's still on HBO Max, so you should check it out if you have a chance. And that's just about it. So thank you for joining us yet again here at October Nights. I've been your ghoulish goalie, Patrick Smith, here to introduce each and every terrifying tale for every single night in October. And I only got one thing left to say to you. Sweet dreams.
I do think in some ways both adaptations, like It Chapter 2, I think nails the ending it's going for, but the miniseries is truer to how the book ends in a much more, I think, bittersweet way, because It Chapter 2 kind of, lessens the blow where they do get to keep their memories. In the It miniseries and the book, they start to forget each other. It's such a perfect ending, but it sucks so hard.
Except I guess for Ben and Deb.
Right. I mean, they're at least gonna remember each other. But everything beyond that,
remember all those times we had as kids? No? Okay.
It's a little bit complicated, but I do I do prefer the ending where they do forget each other, as weird as that is to say, because I think it's a bit more poetic and a bit more true to how moving into adulthood is, and they're finally able to move out of their childhood and get to live these lives. And in a beautiful way, them forgetting is them being able to move past the trauma of having to deal with this. And so it sucks that the cost of that is losing all of those memories, those beautiful memories with their friends. But I mean, it's tragic, but it's a beautiful tragedy.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And definitely, like, that almost, seeing them talk about forgetting was hard because, like, I didn't expect that based off of because I saw it in Chapter 2 version. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely, I do think that makes a lot of sense what you said.